Hi everyone, this is Joanne Martonic with RBFF. Thank you for joining us today for our State Successes webinar. We have three speakers today, but I will start off with a little bit of housekeeping items first. All your phones are going to be kept on mute throughout the webinar, so if you have a question at the end or during the webinar, please type it into the Q&A box on the bottom right side of your screen, and we will then get to the questions at the end of all three presenters. If you don't see the Q&A box on the right side of your screen, you may need to expand the settings by clicking on the little red arrow at the top right of the screen. We will be posting a copy of the slides along with a recording of today's presentation on our website after this webinar, and we'll email all attendees to let you know when the materials are available for download. Finally, we have a survey at the end of the webinar, so please take a minute to fill this out. It'll pop up when the webinar ends. We really appreciate your feedback as this helps us fine-tune future webinars that you want to hear about. So thank you all for joining today. We have three short presentations. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our first speaker, Shannon Haywood, Outreach Coordinator for Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. She'll be presenting targeted marketing strategy for the Washington Fishing Derby.
All right, thank you. I'm going to jump right in here. Like she said, my name is Shannon Haywood, and I'm the Outreach Coordinator for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. I'm going to discuss with you guys today Washington's unique style of fishing derby, our targeted marketing approach, and most importantly, the marketing and data tracking methods that were used to produce the results we've seen this year. Next slide. So while the goal of our efforts was to test method effectiveness in reaching new market segments through our derby, the most important aspect of this was actually the ability to measure the results. Next slide. So to begin, I need to explain what makes this derby different. Most states have had derbies. You're all probably very familiar with them, but we felt that the traditional derby style seemed to draw in only a few dozen to a few hundred participants, and we noticed that participants are usually avid anglers or the children of avid anglers. While this is definitely a fun opportunity, we wanted to create an event that would better recruit new anglers, reactivate lapsed anglers, and could sustain thousands of participants. We also really wanted it to be mutually beneficial for all parties involved, including our biologists and our licensed dealers. Next slide. So to achieve this, we first had to get buy-off from our fish program because it was going to require a lot of work on their end as well as from our program. So while we wanted the derby to sell more licenses, we found that we could do it in such a way that the data collected could be used to help track fish mortality and help develop better lake-specific stocking plans. Next slide. So we created this statewide derby that runs from the opening day of our lowland lake opener, and that was April 22nd, and that's just the day that the majority of our lakes open, and it runs all the way to October 31st. To obtain prizes, we look to our licensed dealers and manufacturers. We actually sent out representatives to visit approximately 600 licensed dealers. And for the 2017 Derby, we received over 900 prizes, valuing over $27,000. So then our fish program tagged trout with a unique identifier tag. Each prize coordinates with a unique fish tag and is placed in a lake near the donating dealer. Customers who catch a tag trout would call our phone number, which was listed on the tag, and receive dealer information to claim their prize. A valid 2017 fishing license was the only requirement to participate. Next slide. So we first did this style of derby in 2016, and we just saw awesome results. We had record high fishing license sales for the month of April and brought in over $300,000 in additional revenue. This was in part because instead of one winner, there were hundreds of winners. So as people shared their wins, it created a bunch of excitement and buzz around the derby. It basically self-promoted itself. So for the first year, we really did very little promotion and advertising. We actually put it on for under $5,000. Pretty cool. Next slide. So even though the Derby appeared to be a success, there were still a few things we really wanted to know. How many people are actually participating in the Derby? How many people were aware of the Derby? Is this an activity that could successfully reach new audiences? We also wanted to see if using more innovative technology and a targeted marketing method, see if it would do a better job of speaking to potential customers that we don't normally or traditionally market to. Next slide. So what was our strategy? Well, we decided to do both general, non-targeted marketing and a highly targeted marketing approach. And then we would compare the results of each to counties that didn't have any Derby lakes in them. So this was basically our control group. So for the general advertising, and we'll call that A group, we created flyers and signs to hang at licensed dealer locations and at lake sites. We also sent emails to our existing customer base. This is pretty much the same level of promotion we used for the 2016 Derby. For the targeted marketing approach, and we'll call that B group, we decided to focus on young urban families. These were primarily men and women 25 to 44, many of which had children who lived in more urban counties. Next slide. So we decided on this target group in response to a larger issue that we've been tracking, kind of in regards to the aging out of our current angler group. We felt that targeting this group may benefit us in two ways. First, by re-engaging an age group that may have fallen out of fishing in high school and college, or maybe they were never introduced to it in the first place. And second, by using them as mentors and advocates to introduce their children to fishing. Next slide. So the targeted marketing methods included print advertising in the form of lifestyle magazines, e-blasts, e-newsletters, Pandora radio advertising, website advertisements, and school system distribution. None of these methods were really geared towards our traditional customer base. For the lifestyle magazines, we placed in two very different ones. One was a local magazine that highlighted just general things to do in the area. The other was a parenting magazine that listed local activities for parents and young children to do within their local areas. Both publications sent out e-blasts and e-newsletters for the months of May and June to their customer base that contained ads for our Derby. The parenting magazine also had a corresponding website that received a lot of traffic, and mostly of parents looking for those local activities. So Derby ads were placed in there in various spots and sizes. Next slide. We also ran two separate Pandora campaigns with different messaging depending on the age of the target group. All were considered outdoor enthusiasts, but did not specifically hunt or fish. These were basically just groups that enjoyed the outdoors in general. Next slide. So many of our Washington state school districts use a service that emails flyers to parents regarding local events and school activities. It's used in many school districts nationwide as well. We distributed Derby flyers to elementary schools using this system within the counties used for the targeted marketing approach. This was, again, for the months of May and June. It was pretty neat. The system made it easy to track open rate and the click-through rate of the parents as they would click through the email to go to the site for more information. Next slide. So our event does not require registration, so we had to use a variety of tools, and we measured against a control group to get the most accurate picture of the results. So here's a few examples of how we did our analysis. First, we compared counties where there was no promotion and no Derby. Again, that's our control group. Counties where there were we very generally promoted the Derby, but did not use a targeted approach. That's our A group. And counties where we used a heavily targeted promotion strategy, and that's our B group. We used Tableau, which is a data visualization tool to measure Derby-associated license sales in all three areas, and compared them to the same time period as the year prior. Overall, Derby counties fared far better than non-Derby counties, and targeted Derby counties fared slightly better than the non-targeted counties. In terms of revenue, ages 25 to 44 and counties targeted with grant-funded Pandora and editorial ads and e-blasts saw a lift of over $160,000 in revenue for license year 2017, May and June combined, compared to license year 2016, May and June combined. Next slide. So in addition to analyzing the specific groups within counties, we also wanted to look at the data from a different angle and kind of look at the effects of ages statewide. A lot of our targeted messaging centered on taking friends and family with you and really appealed to that 25 to 44-year-old age group in general, as opposed to only in those certain counties. So we assume that on a statewide level, 25 to 44-year-old age group may have increases regardless of location. So as you can see, compared to the previous year, the targeted age group overall saw an 11 to 16% lift in license quantity, which was higher than most other age groups that only received general advertising. Next slide. So this equated to a total gain of over $300,000 in revenue from 25 to 44-year-olds compared to the previous year for the months of May and June combined. Next slide. And right here, this is just kind of explaining what I had just spoken to before. As you can see in that age group, 25 to 44, the revenue percentages are quite a bit higher than most of the other ones. Next slide. So while that reflected results for 25 to 44-year-olds statewide, we also wanted to look into how the age group did, especially by gender, within those highly targeted counties. And this is mostly because two of the most successful marketing methods had a mostly female reach, especially with that parenting magazine website, e-blast. And sure enough, female ages 25 to 44 in the highly targeted counties had a 3% higher lift in license sales compared to the non-targeted counties. Next slide. So after looking at these measurements, we also sent a survey to those who had purchased fishing licenses to get a sense of participation and awareness numbers. According to our survey samples, we discovered that around 52% of those who had purchased a fishing license during the Derby time period had heard of the Derby. They were aware of it. Aside from visiting our WDFW website, most people had heard of the fishing derby via an email, and that was either through RDFW email, the e-blasts and e-newsletters from the lifestyle magazines, or the school system distribution email. We also found that approximately 36.5% of those who had purchased a fishing license participated in the derby, and approximately 2% of those who had purchased fishing licenses purchased a fishing license specifically and only to participate in the derby. Next slide. So through analyzing this data, we were able to pinpoint some lessons learned that we are now working into our upcoming 2018 Fishing Derby. We're going to be able to, fine-tune our methods, make cost-effective decisions, and improve our overall efforts. We found some really great information and data to support some of our upcoming initiatives that we're incorporating in. For example, next slide, sorry, missed one. For example, we know from our campaign results that targeted email and online ads are effective in reaching that 25 to 44-year-old age bracket. So we're going to expand on this idea for 2018 and incorporate online video advertising as well. Our goal is to, again, cater the messaging specifically to the market segment. After analyzing open rate and click-through rates and looking through the comments from our survey, it also appears that the marketing methods that targeted parents, specifically moms, were some of the most effective. So we're going to be expanding on this strategy as well by sending information about the Derby to more schools and likely advertising again in the parenting magazine, website, and emails. We're going to be increasing the frequency of our email and social media advertising, and we're going to be implementing that earlier in the year than we had done last year. We're going to also be encouraging more social media sharing on Instagram and Facebook using the hashtag #WaTroutDerby. Almost half of our Washington State fishing license customers are still unaware that the Derby exists. So we're going to be looking into increasing advertising frequency and variety to try to increase this number for 2018. We feel that, increasing awareness will, of course, also increase participation. We're going to be looking into increasing the urban fishing Derby numbers by choosing more urban lakes for the Derby fish. We also found for our dealers who donated to the Derby, on average, only 50% of the prizes were actually claimed. So we were going to relay this information to our donating dealers to see if it impacts the amounts they were willing to donate. And originally when I had done this presentation that was in place, we actually ended up implementing that lesson learned, and we did actually increase both the average quantity and average amount of what they were willing to donate. So it definitely worked. It was pretty cool. Let's see. Additionally, we're also going to be incorporating dealer locations into our video and online advertising to kind of better highlight available prizes. Next slide. So with the successes we've seen, we're all looking forward to putting on another successful and fun fishing derby using the lessons learned, analyzing the results of our 2017 derby. So while it's easy to say that a targeted marketing approach is a good R3 strategy, knowing the how, the who, and measuring the return on investment is really imperative to it actually being a continued success. Otherwise, we could wind up putting in a lot of work and money only to be reaching the same groups we have always reached and not inspiring any new generations of anglers. We believe as we try different marketing methods and improve the way we measure the results, we will vastly improve our ability to distinguish between R3 strategies that sound good and strategies that actually deliver results. And the end, you can switch to the next one if you'd like. It just says the end. But thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Shannon. We've had some questions come in, but we're going to hold these until all three presenters speak. So we'll read these out loud after the third presenter. So next presenter we have is Carly Montez. She is the Marketing Programs Manager at Texas Parks and Wildlife, and she'll be presenting on email acquisition strategies.
Thanks so much, Joanne. I appreciate it. As Joanne said, my name's Carly. I'm the Marketing Programs Manager at Parks and Wildlife. And I'm going to talk with you guys a little bit about some of our email acquisition strategies. Starting just with some background, and you can go to the next slide, Joanne. At Parks and Wildlife, we've been using digital communications and email to communicate with our customers for nearly 10 years. And like many of you guys have realized, we saw early on that it was a very effective and cost-efficient tool for driving additional revenue and increasing engagement with our customers. We had some early successes with license renewal and reactivation emails, and also with renewal and reactivation emails to other customer groups like our state park pass holders and our registered voters and our magazine subscribers. But our challenge was that our reach was limited, and so our successes were limited. We only had valid email addresses for a small percentage of our customers. And we had limited means to communicate with them in any other way. So we were really missing some opportunities to recruit, retain, and reactivate our customers. So we decided to implement a suite of email acquisition strategies to increase our reach and ultimately our return on investment. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. Next. So one of the easiest ways to accomplish this is approaching the low-hanging fruit, our current customers. So we started making sure that we're engaging all of our current customers. As soon as they make a purchase with us or visit a park, we're adding them to relevant email topics so that we can communicate with them regularly throughout the year, not just when they complete a transaction with us. But we also use that as an opportunity to welcome them. So we don't just drop them in there and start sending them our e-newsletters. We first send them a welcome email that lets them know that they've been added to our email list. it gives them an opportunity to unsubscribe if they don't want to hear from us. And we also use that as an opportunity to cross-promote other products and programs that may be relevant to them based on their transaction with us. So for example, when we welcome our fishing license purchasers, we promote other fishing programs like our neighborhood fishing program and our regulations app. When we welcome our state park visitors, we promote our park events and our state parks app and encourage them to make another visit. So you've probably seen this in your own lives. It's become more and more a standard business practice. You download an app, you start getting regular emails about it. You buy a product from a store and you start receiving weekly promotions from them. So we're kind of following that trend, and although it's something that may have been frowned upon 10 years ago, now it's something that people don't think twice about. Next slide. So what we've seen is that those emails we send welcoming our new customers always generate very high open rates, between 30 and 46%. And even though we give them a really prominent opportunity to unsubscribe, very few of them do. And in fact, we actually see that these customers are engaging with our content at higher rates than our non-customers. So as we've started adding our customers to our e-newsletters, we've seen our reach grow significantly, and also our open rates grow, and the number of clicks to our website. Just one note is that while we started adding all these customers, we were also focusing on making our emails mobile responsive as well, because we saw that over 60% of the web traffic generated by our emails is coming from either mobile devices or tablets, and that's growing. So that switch to making our emails mobile responsive also likely helped improve our response rate during this time. Next slide. One challenge that we have in Texas is that email addresses of our hunting and fishing license buyers are only collected from customers who purchase online. But we're still seeing that most of our hunting and fishing licenses are purchased offline at sporting goods stores and at other retailers. So for our Big Time Texas Hunts program, where we sell entries to win premium guided hunting packages, we decided to make a concerted effort of implementing a price promotion in order to drive purchases online and collect more email addresses from those customers. We implemented this back in 2008, and we made the price of an entry $9 rather than our regular $10 price per entry. And since that promotion was implemented, we've seen online sales increase every year, growing from 20% to this year it was 75%. And we've actually seen that people who purchase online purchase more entries on average than people who purchase offline. So that's more than made up for the reduced price of buying online. Next slide. But ultimately, what paid off the most about the price promotion was our ability to collect those email addresses. As we know, having the ability to make multiple touch points with a customer through your marketing efforts is going to give you better response, better return on your investment. And that's held true for this program. We've seen a 5% higher response rate from those customers that we're able to contact by both email and direct mail. And additionally, with direct mail, we're limited in the number of people that we can reach. We have only so much budget each year. But with emails, we're able to reach a much broader potential customer base at a very low cost. So last year, people who received only emails about this program purchased over 7,600 entries and helped us generate nearly $62,000 in additional revenue. And like I said, because there are minimal hard costs associated with that email marketing, the return on investment for these folks was really high. In Texas, we have pretty limited authority to implement price promotions on our licenses, so we haven't been able to extend the success of this effort to fishing licenses. But states that do have more flexibility could certainly apply these learnings to test a price promotion strategy with fishing licenses in order to generate more emails. Next slide. Another strategy we've used is prize drawings. So last year we used a prize drawing to collect customer email addresses when licenses went on sale. We did this through a special promotion that we called Win Your Dream Year Outdoors. Through this promotion, we gave current license holders the opportunity to enter a free drawing simply by providing us their contact information and by opting in to receive hunting or fishing emails from us. We'd put together a prize package that had 12 prizes that were all donated to the department by partners, so it didn't cost us anything to give out the prize package. It included things like guided hunting and fishing trips, a shotgun, and Cabela's gift cards and gear. We thought it was really a prize package that could create some excitement in the hunting and fishing communities, and it gave us something special and exclusive to offer our license holders and to thank them for buying a license. We ran the promotion from August through December and notified winners by email. And through this promotion, we collected more than 26,000 unique email addresses. And the other thing that was good about this is that we were able to collect both their customer number and their email address. So we were able to add them back into our customer database and have an understanding of their license purchase behavior. So ultimately, this promotion enabled us to start sending anybody who entered the promotion ongoing communications about hunting or fishing throughout the year, and also to send them emails related to their license purchases, such as license renewal and reactivation emails. Next slide. Another strategy we've used is promoting exclusive content on our website. So working with our magazine, we've identified one article out of each issue that we don't post online. We don't make it readily available. Instead, we withhold that article and give access only to people who provide us with an email address. We promote the article on our website and in social media, and then people can click on that and provide their contact information to get access to the article. During that process, we also secure their permission to send them ongoing communications about our magazine, including their monthly e-newsletter and subscription promotions. Since we started doing this with our magazine in January 2016, we've collected nearly 17,000 new email addresses this way. We've seen the most effective content for this sort of technique is lists, the 10 best, top 10, 7 worst, things like that. But it really could be done using any sort of exclusive content. So that could be an article, photos, video, anything really. Next slide. Providing our customers an opportunity to sign up for timely information has also proven to give us a boost in subscriptions. One example to share here is this last license year, for the 2 weeks leading up to when our new licenses went on sale, we ran this promotion on the homepage of our website that gave people an opportunity to sign up for a reminder as soon as licenses went on sale. And during that time frame, we saw a 247% increase in new subscriptions or new emails collected. And then on August 15th, when our licenses went on sale, we were able to send this reminder email, the one shown on the right here, to a bigger list than we'd had before. And we saw that coupled with our license renewal and reactivation emails that went out that same day, email traffic accounted for 40% of the traffic to our license sales page and contributed to a record high first day of license sales. Where we sold 20% more licenses than the year before, and that was driven largely by a 54% increase in revenue from online sales. Next slide. Fully utilizing our website to collect email addresses has also been a critical tool for us. So for a long time, we've had a link on every page of our website that invites people to sign up for emails, but it wasn't very prominent or easy to find. In December of this past year, we made the switch to a new footer that appears on every page of our website that has an on-page email sign-up field where you can enter your email address right on that page rather than clicking to a sign-up form. And there's also a small unobtrusive overlay that shows up on each page. So making it easy to anchor link down to that sign up form. So even if you're not scrolling to the bottom of the page, you're going to see that opportunity to sign up for emails. The form is also customized with sign up options that are relevant to the web page that you're currently on. So for example, when you're on our neighborhood fishing program page, the sign up form at the bottom of that page offers you only neighborhood fishing emails. So that makes our call to action more relevant to your web experience, and it's making you more likely that you're going to convert and give us your email address. In 1 month of implementation, this new footer led to a 174% increase in new subscribers or new emails collected on our website. And you can see that in the graph on the right side of this page. You can see as visually where we made the switch and immediately began collecting more email addresses. Next slide. Very recently, we've begun experimenting with collecting emails and phone numbers through text to subscribe functionality. We've just started using this, so we don't really have results to share yet, but we hope to see soon if this is an effective way to collect emails or phone numbers. We're using this approach primarily in printed pieces or at events where before either we weren't collecting emails or we were collecting them manually on a piece of paper. So just a few examples here to share. On the top left, this is a envelope stuffer that we put into boat registration mailings, where we're asking boaters to text in for information about invasive species. On the right is a poster that we'll be placing in parks this year to ask visitors to text their email address to sign up for ongoing state park updates. And then on the bottom is a call to action on our neighborhood fishing program webpage where people can text in to receive information about that program by text. Next. So as we've implemented these strategies, our reach has steadily increased, and now we have more than 700,000 listed subscribers, which is giving us the ability to drive increased awareness of our programs, products, and services, and ultimately helping us generate more revenue through our digital communications. Just for example, looking at our license revenue, we've seen an increase every year since 2012. And when we look closer, we see a strong growth in license revenue from millennials. And that's offsetting a decline in revenue from baby boomers as they age into cheaper senior price licenses. So we believe that the license sales growth we're seeing from millennials is at least in part due to the fact that we've been able to stay relevant with a more tech-savvy generation using digital communications such as email and social media. In the long term, we believe digital communications will allow us to stay relevant and generate revenue from our changing customer base. So that's what I have to share today. Hope to answer any questions you may have at the end of the webinar. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Carly. Yes, we will answer. We've gotten a lot of questions on both presentations so far, so we'll address these at the end. But last but not least, I'd like to turn it over to Chris Willard, the R3 Coordinator for Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, to present Strategic Retail Partnering for R3 Success.
Thanks, Joanne. All right, looks like we're up now. One of the primary tenets coming out of the National R3 plans is the need to take full advantage of the core competencies and resources that state, NGO, and industry partners have available to them. I'm going to talk about how we have strategically partnered with retailers here in Oregon to engage customers in a new way that provides true value to them, to our industry partners, and to our agency's R3 efforts. Next slide, please. All right, let's first start by taking a look at what customer engagement used to look like for us. Like many agencies, we were pretty good at providing good one-off experiences like free fishing day events and promotions, BOW workshops, or angler education classes. And through these efforts, customers had a great time. But there was little effort given to linking events or providing next steps to the customers that we interacted with. And the result of that was this type of transactional engagement that was not effective at maintaining or growing customer engagement over time. Next slide. What I came to realize is that to be successful, we needed to focus beyond programs and events, that we had way more tools in our toolbox that we could take advantage of when trying to implement R3 strategies. We needed to adopt a cross-functional, customer-centered approach to R3. Next slide. To that end, I started studying how private corporations such as Intel, Microsoft, and Toyota engage their customers. From that work, I developed what I call the Hunter and Angler customer journey, which provides a core strategy with which to base our agency's R3 efforts. This type of customer-focused approach makes it easier to engage teams throughout the agency. It also highlights pathways for strategic partnerships with outside organizations. The key to this is to look at the process from the customer's perspective, identify any gaps or opportunities that may exist, and then develop high-value customer touchpoints that address them. And what you're looking at here is really just a consumer buying model. On the left-hand side, it starts by taking a look at the need identification. In this case, somebody wants to go out and find a new outdoor activity or food source. We need to make them aware that hunting and fishing exists to fulfill that need. And then we have to get them through the consideration phase, which is vital. They have to see themselves, people that look like them, that think like them, pursuing those activities. And if we can get them believing that fishing exists for people like them, then we get them into the evaluation phase, which is really where they're going to try to gather information on what do I need to get started, how do I do this, where do I go, all the skill building and knowledge building that needs to take place in order for them to pursue those activities. If we get them through there, they make the determination, okay, I can do this, I'm going to go out there and fish. Then we have to get them through the purchase process. And that's important not only for agencies to understand through our license sales processes, but also for retailers because they need not only the license, but they need the gear and the equipment to get started. And finally, after they've gone out there, they've done the activities, they're going to take some time to reflect on their experience and hopefully bond with that activity and grow into advocates for the agency and for conservation. And there's strategies throughout this entire process that we can take advantage of and that we can build on. I'm not going to go into a lot of details on this model, but there is a download available through the webinar that you can click on and get more information on the customer journey. Next slide. All right, let's look at a real world example of a strategy that we developed based on the customer journey. Imagine that you get a phone call from an adult who is interested in beginning to fish, and they're starting to ask you, okay, how do I get started in this activity? Next slide. In Oregon, we're going to direct them to the rainbow trout. It's an iconic fish, and it's the king of Oregon game fish. And you might ask, why start with trout? That's what they're going to ask. Next slide. Because they're so easy and fun to catch, and they're pretty tasty to boot. All you need to get started is to buy a fishing license and then go to the store and get some basic tackle and gear, and you can start fishing and catching trout using simple techniques. Next slide. And then we send them to places like this, where they're confronted with literally thousands of options. For the newcomer, this is super intimidating and can be enough to deter them from beginning to fish. We saw an opportunity here through the customer journey, and we partnered with Dick's Sporting Goods here in Oregon on a solution to this. Next slide. So we developed a retail end cap that makes it easier for new participants to navigate the retail experience, and at the same time, it provides them with useful information that they need to get started. The end cap display includes instruction on basic techniques needed to fish for trout and a map that shows them about 50 places they can go fish within about an hour of where they're standing. The merchandise displayed in the end cap is just that basic gear needed and recommended to get started. On one side of the end cap that you can see here, there's a tear-off map that they can take with them. Again, that shows them local places they can fish. And on the opposite side, where it talks about techniques and gear, there's also a tear-off illustration that tells them how to rig those basic techniques. And then there's also linkages to on the end cap as well as on the tear-off sheets that direct folks back to ODFW's website for more resources that we have put a lot of time and energy into developing that help them learn how to fish and where to fish and when to fish. So what we found is that this is a true win-win-win strategy. Customers get an enhanced retail experience and the information that they need to get started. It's much easier and much less intimidating for them to visit the retail locations where these are present and make those first-time buying decisions. The retailer, for them, they see this, they use this for their employees as a base for engaging new customers. In Oregon and probably throughout the nation, oftentimes the retail store associates might not be experienced in talking to folks and teaching them how to begin fishing. And this serves as basically a training tool and, again, a base for them to go back to. So when somebody comes up and asks them, hey, how do I get started? They walk them over to this end cap, and it really serves to drive those conversations with new customers. And from what we've been able to gather is these end caps are super strong performers from a sales standpoint as well. When we initially partnered with Dick's Sporting Goods, they said, we can put these things up, but don't expect them to stay up, especially into November and December during the Christmas holiday season. But what we have found after 2.5 years, 3 years of this, is that these things are staying in stores, and when they get a little bit beat up, they're calling us to come in and replace them. And in terms of our agency, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife gets in-store branding and a tool that drives awareness of the many resources that we have developed to help people learn how to fish and learn where to go to fish. This particular end cap is now in all 9 of Oregon's Dick's Sporting Goods. It's in both locations of Oregon Cabela's, and it's also in about 70 Bi-Mart stores. And Bi-Mart is a regional retailer who's a big-time player in the fishing and hunting retail space here in Oregon. Next slide, please. All right, so what are the takeaways? What are the lessons learned here? First, when considering partnerships, you got to think strategically. Partner core competencies are not providing free stuff to fill the swag bags. We've got to get beyond that mindset. Use the customer journey to identify gaps or opportunities, and then work with partners to develop those high-value customer touchpoints that are beyond your control, but that may be within your influence. Second, it's super critical to communicate the benefits of a proposed partnerships in tangible terms. Many partners don't speak our language. In fact, most of them probably don't speak our language. And we need to sell our vision in a manner that makes sense for their business or their organization. One of the things that I've been up against and that I've fought through is that it's okay for a state agency to help a retailer drive sales or to help an NGO drive membership. We just have to be mindful to be inclusive in our efforts and remind those who say that's not our role, that conservation depends on the excise taxes that increased sales depend on, and it also relies on the engagement of participants in conservation activities. Third, we've got to be prepared to dump some serious time and money into activating these strategies. Many partners, particularly those from the industry side of things, are focused on day-to-day results, and that means their sales bottom lines. We need to be prepared to drive things if it's going to happen. You also have to fund things, at least initially. I haven't imagined, I never did imagine that I'd have to design and figure out how to manufacture a retail end cap, but that's what it took to get this particular strategy activated. A lot of folks say, well, why didn't you get sponsors? And I'm sure that I could have gotten sponsors to pay for and help develop this, and that would have been great. But attracting sponsors is hard work, and it's super time consuming in and of itself. And they're not always available when the opportunities present themselves. And finally, I'd say be patient, but also be persistent. State bureaucracies don't always deal well with these types of creative partnerships. And what I've learned through working and developing this and getting it into some major retailers is that, believe it or not, corporate bureaucracies can be just as bad as government, and oftentimes make government look streamlined. Next slide, please. So by implementing these types of linked customer-centric strategies, we've been able to build on the connected experiences of our customers and grow engagement over time. The end result, hopefully, is going to be more customers who are more engaged with fishing and with our agency and our other stakeholder partners who are dependent on sustained growth and participation. Next slide. All right, that's all I have for you. Appreciate all your time, and please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you very much, Chris. Definitely appreciate your presentation. Thank you to all three, Shannon, Carly, and Chris. We'll now answer questions. They've been kind of streaming in throughout the whole webinar. But if you have not asked yours yet, please remember to put it into the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. All right, let's see. The first question is for Shannon. Do you look at the angler's past activity? Was it a new angler, or did the person just buy the license at that time because of the Derby, but may have bought that year anyway?
We do look at their past activity. We can see if they had purchased, the year prior or any of the years prior, and that's how we can distinguish between a new customer, a lapsed customer, so on and so forth. So yes, we do look at that.
Great, thanks, Shannon. And did you use an advertising agency to assist in this effort?
No, we do this all in-house. We have a marketing team here that I'm a part of, and no, we have a graphic designer who created the creative portions for us. We made the phone calls, we did the emails. Pretty cost effective.
Yeah, that's awesome. The next question we have is from Jane. She said, the numbers you have look great, but were these people lapsed anglers? How do you know that they wouldn't have purchased a license anyway? This is a question I get asked all the time when I have to tout the success of a promotion.
Sure. So that is one of the hardest things to measure that we've run into a few times. So, I mean, honestly, the best way for us to gauge that was through the surveys that we did. We were able to survey anyone who had purchased a license during that time, and we were able to get enough people to participate in that survey that statistically it was sound, and we could tell which portion of the fishing license purchasers had actually participated. So it did take a little pushing and prodding to get people to take it, but once we got enough, we could feel safe in it and confident in it.
Great, thanks. The next question, also for Shannon, is what did the biologists do with the tagging information? How many tags were turned in, and was this helpful to them?
Yes, so it was very helpful to them. I think we had about 50% of the 900 were claimed. And I can't tell you from the biologist standpoint exactly how they do their data analysis, but what they were able to do is see where that fish was harvested from, and they can use that to kind of compare, say they stocked a bunch of tag trout in one lake and a bunch of tag trout in another lake, and depending on how many were harvested and when, they're kind of getting a better idea of how they should adjust their stocking plans. Like, for example, this year we identified a number of lakes that we put tag trout in, but there weren't really any harvested, and they really couldn't figure out why. So they're kind of adjusting where to put those, where they would have a better harvest success. Like I said in the presentation, we also wanted to push people kind of more towards some urban areas and some more urban lakes. So they're going to adjust their strategies there. Again, stocking more tag trout in those lakes as opposed to the more rural lakes. So they tell us it's very helpful. So we're going to keep going with it.
Great. Next question. Were you able to tell how many women were women with kids?
I know, I cannot tell specifically how many. I wish that I could, and I think that's something that I'd want to look into for this upcoming Derby. That is kind of one of the downfalls, is we know how many adults relatively participated, but we couldn't tell you how many youth participants we had. And I know that a number of quite a few youth ended up winning prizes. So I know that there were probably a ton who participated. So we're still kind of looking into how to figure that one out.
All right, the next question is, what was your cash and time cost for 2017? Shannon, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm trying to, can you explain that question a little bit better? I'm not sure if whoever typed that in, did you say, can you repeat it?
Yeah, sorry. They used the hashtag WA Trout Derby, and then the question was, what was your cash and time cost for 2017? We can come back to that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what that is. Sorry.
Okay, Tammy, if you could clarify, we can come back to that. I'm going to move on to a few questions for Carly. Thank you, Shannon. And there might be a few more later down for you.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, for Carly, have you had to add more people to develop more content since you're collecting more email addresses?
Great question. We do have a contractor that we've hired to help us develop content, and then I work on content creation too. But really what we've tried to do is be more strategic about how we plan and schedule our content. So we have a calendar of emails, and then we try to simplify content creation by curating content from other sources. So we have a lot of content that is produced by the rest of our communications team, whether it's our magazine or our media productions group that's producing videos and radio shows, using our news releases, and kind of repurposing that content for our emails. Another thing that we've seen as our lists have grown is that the other people in our agency are seeing the potential of using email. So I've done more training of other people to send emails. So we see people moving from previously sending print newsletters to now sending emails instead. So kind of spreading that workload around to others in the agency too.
Okay, great. The next question for Carly is, how does Texas get Cabela's to donate gear? Do they have a program for this? Does Cabela's have a program for this?
I don't know if they have a program specifically for donating gear. We reached out to their corporate office and asked for their support of this program, and we started building a relationship with them. This was the first time that I've worked with them on a promotion. We did provide them sponsor recognition as part of the promotion, so giving them something in return for the donations. And then we also made a point of sharing our successes with them to kind of build that relationship for future years.
Great, thanks. Did you observe any issues where people would give false email addresses that would kick back? If not, awesome. If so, how is this addressed?
I think that's in reference to the Win Your Dream Years outdoor promotion. And with that, we saw limited false email addresses because the rules specifically stated that winners would be notified by email. So if you provided us a fake email address, there was no chance you were going to win those prizes. We saw people entering multiple times, and so we had to dedupe those after the contest was over, but very, very few false email addresses from that promotion.
Great, thanks, Carly. Are there any data privacy concerns when collecting phone numbers?
As long as people are opting in for text communications and that's clear when they provide their phone number, I'm not aware of any privacy issues. There would be issues with just taking phone numbers that you already have for your customers and using those to send text communications. They do have to opt in for text.
Okay, great. I'm now going to switch to some questions for Chris. How much did Oregon pay for an end cap design? How did they select the company's products to include?
We designed it in-house, so we didn't pay anybody. It was all just time of myself and the graphic designer. The one cost that we had associated with it was we had to find somebody to manufacture this ourselves. And I thought that was going to be easy, but it ends up that when you really want to pilot an in-cap display and only build 15 of them to get started, nobody really wants to talk to you in the retail world about that. So I found a local cardboard.
Chris, are you still there? You cut out. Chris? Okay. If you're talking, you might have muted yourself. We can't hear you right now, Chris. Okay, well, so we might have to skip some of the questions for Chris. So I'm going to go back to some for Shannon and Carly. And we won't be able to get to all of these questions. It's great that there's so many. But so you'll have to email the presenters themselves if you have more questions, and I'll be in touch when the presentation and the recording are online and can provide you with contact information as well. So we'll continue with a few more questions because we're running out of time. For Shannon, how do people know that they've caught a tagged fish?
So when they catch the trout, I mean the tag is right there. Each year we have a different color, so it's pretty obvious. It's about an inch long Floy tag.
Okay, great. For Shannon, how long did you run your social media advertisements on Pandora and Facebook?
So those are run, like I said, there were 2 campaigns, and so the first one is a little bit at the end of April. I think in total with both combined ran all the way to about June 6th, I believe it was. So the first campaign was just a certain age group, and then the second campaign had a slightly different message, same counties, but a different age group. So we adjusted that messaging depending on what we felt would be relevant for those ages.
Okay. Let's see, a little bit of a clarification to the cost question that was asked earlier. You had said that the cost of 2015 was under $5,000. So what did it cost to run the Derby in 2017, and how much staff time was involved and other costs?
Got you. Okay. So for the methods that we spoke about today, that was primarily from about $10,000 from the grant that we were awarded, and the staff time for those particular methods, it was pretty minimal. I mean, it came down to basically making the creative and sending it to the companies, and then the companies did their work and posted it out. And our biologists were going to stock lakes anyway for our lowland lake opener, so it just took on their time the extra time to tag it, but they weren't doing it's not like they were going far out of their way to go stock stuff that wouldn't have been stocked. Now, for the rest of the Derby, because we did a bunch of other stuff not related to this particular case study, there was more money involved. We had different messaging. Took more staff time for our account reps to go and get those donations. It was a significant portion of our, maybe for that time of the year, probably mostly February and March. But for these methods, it was pretty minimal. It was pretty minimal and within that $10,000 range.
Great, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are out of time, and I know there's a lot more questions that did not get answered, so we will send everybody the contacts information for all three presenters today so you can connect with the presenter with more of your questions. We will also be posting a copy, the slides online and a recording of the presentation online as well. We will email you all when that is posted on our website. Please remember when you leave this webinar, there is a short survey that would be great if you could take 1 minute to fill it out, as the survey helps us plan future webinars. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you to Shannon, Carly, and Chris.